Welcome to Sales and Marketing Talk Show. Today we are talking about sales and especially about follow-ups and closing of sales. And I have Jordan Stupar, a sales coach here all the way from the States. So welcome, Jordan. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Great, thank you. Great, thank you. And I think you are the first sales guy from the States joining this show. There's been a lot of marketers from the States, but great to have some sales discussion here as well. And as said earlier, today we are mostly talking about like follow-ups and therefore like how to close the sales. But first of all, I would love to hear your story super shortly. Why did Jordan become a salesman?
I didn't mean to become a salesperson. My dad was always a salesperson my entire life as a youth, as a kid, and I watched him, take care of his family and do quite well for himself, being a salesperson. And I didn't really want to take that route. I was more interested in sports, like playing soccer, or as you guys would call it, football, and playing music, and ended up figuring out pretty quickly, when I was in my teenage years, that I didn't really have much of a future, at least professionally, playing soccer or playing music, and those things weren't paying the bills. So ended up getting a door-to-door sales job when I was, I don't know, 16, 15, something like that, after selling some Kirby vacuum cleaners and some cutlery and some, really basic, sales jobs, and ended up really turning that into a career. I did door to door for 8 years, and then became an inside salesperson in New York City. Quickly became the top salesperson there, but was stuck on a bad comp plan. So I wasn't making enough money to really justify living in New York City. If you've been, it's very expensive. And, continued my inside sales career down in Miami for a highly visible B2B sales organization, became the top salesperson there. And then, that's pretty much the quick version of my, I don't know, 17, 18 years being a salesperson.
Yeah, great story. And now you're helping other sales guys and sales girls to become better in sales. And I've been following you on Instagram, I think, for 6 or 7 months. And I think after 1 month of following, I was like, we must have Jordan on the show to discuss sales. So great to have you here. But yeah, today we talk about follow-ups. And one thing that I would love to ask from you to start things off is like, why following up is so important in sales? Why salespeople should do that?
Great question. I think that all of us know the statistics regarding follow-up in sales, and it appears that most people understand that it's important, but for some reason, most people either just don't follow up or they do it completely wrong. The reason why I think follow-up is so important is two-sided. One, from the salesperson's perspective, follow-up is something that you can really kind of like get the hang of, or you can learn like a new technique or just a new approach very quickly. And you can really copy and paste, and deploy that strategy to everybody in your sales pipeline from 15 years ago to, that meeting yesterday. And so I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, is that, when they get a new technique or an approach, they can apply it to everything in their past pipeline, and also, of course, everything in the future. And then I think from the prospects or the customer's perspective, follow up is so important because we live in a day and an age these days where information about products and services is extremely easy to find, and in a lot of cases we can do business without even talking to a salesperson. So if you are talking to a salesperson, it means that you're, typically need that little extra, nudge or piece of information, or that little bit of a relationship to help kind of push the buyer on down the sales cycle to get them to make a decision. And so, a salesperson that is lacking follow-up or not doing it correctly is going to not nurture those relationships with buyers. And of course, as well, they're also going to be losing additional opportunities. So follow-up is unbelievably important.
Yeah, and I think there's like a lot of research on the subject, but I think there's like, for example, a lot of a lot of data that every buyer is buying only after the fifth or sixth follow up, and then like all of the salespeople are doing only two or three of those. I
Correct.
think there's probably a lot of data on that one, but I think I know it's important. You know it's important. I think most of the salespeople know that follow-ups are so important. But what is the reason why why salespeople are so bad at that? They don't do that. What is the
Yeah.
reasoning?
So, I think that salespeople aren't very good at follow up for a couple of different reasons. I actually just shot a YouTube video on this like a week ago or so. And really, it breaks down to the fact that, I think the majority of salespeople are bad at following up or don't follow up because they know they're not really providing any real value to the person that they're actually following up with. For instance, there's this chasm that separates marketing people from salespeople. And I know that your audience is mostly marketing, and you're bringing on a salesperson. I constantly am telling people that sales and marketing are pretty much, having babies right now. They're kind of in bed listening to Marvin Gaye and getting it on. And, salespeople, they need to put on their marketing hats because, at least here in the States, I don't know exactly how everything works over there in Finland, but, here in the States, we are bombarded, with billboards and newspapers and news ads, TV, radio, social media from these large companies that more or less have one or maybe two products to sell us, but they have marketing teams, they have advertising teams, they have models, they have budgets, they have all of this stuff to continuously entertain. And like, like how many TV commercials can you make for Coca-Cola? Like and so they're constantly coming up with new ideas on how to entertain and engage their audience so that when I'm finally ready to drink a soda, I'm thinking about Coca-Cola rather than Pepsi. And salespeople, they don't put on that marketing hat, and instead they just call on, their prospect and just say, hey, I'm just checking in, or, I'm touching base, or I wanted to reconnect, or whatever. And like, prospects understand that, why we're calling. We understand, why we're checking in on the deal, but that doesn't really move the relationship, any further down the road. And also, it's not really valuable because I'm just checking in on the deal. Where I see a huge, huge opportunity for salespeople is to take a more creative, a more entertaining, and a more educational approach to following up with their customers so that they know that they're providing that person with some value and can continue, following up and staying in somebody's space long enough so that when they're ready for that soda, they're not thinking about Pepsi, they're thinking about Jordan at Coca-Cola.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like the most common way of follow-ups for sure is the fact that salespeople are either calling or sending a text or sending an email asking that, hey, how is your decision making going, or
Right.
do you have any further questions regarding on this case? And I think, yeah, you can ask that like in some cases, but if you do it like every other day, then probably the buyer will start to hate you. So later today we will talk a little bit about like crazier ideas and things like that. I think there's probably some good ideas, but if we think about like different kind of methods of doing follow up, and now I would have been, for example, asking my client already once that, hey, have you make your decision? And then I would be thinking that, hey, I would like to follow up, but how should I do it? What kind of ideas I could try to use? Like, let's say I haven't done anything special yet, but I want to start up with something quite normal, but still do something else than ask only this question.
Great question. So, I hit that point in my sales career sooner or later where I was like, okay, man, I got to do something new. Like, I'm tired of just calling somebody, leaving 50 voicemails saying, hey, it's Jordan over here. Call me back, call me back, call me back. And so, if I can give probably just one actionable tip to your audience, one thing that isn't even that crazy, that I personally use and works extremely well is, whether you're an entrepreneur and, have your own kind of website or web presence or whatever, or you're working within a large company, it's going to be really important that that company is providing some type of blogs, articles, video content, just about anything that could be valuable or educational. And, basically you can go ahead and just take that URL, copy and paste it, and you can deploy that in an email. You can deploy that in social media messages. You can deploy that in a text message if you have a person's cell phone number. And ultimately, you're not really following up with the deal, but rather you're sending, somebody a piece of content or, a 13 reasons why type of list, or just something valuable that may or may not even really be read or watched by your prospect. But instead of calling and saying, hey, John, it's Jordan over here, I wanted to check in on the deal. Instead, now you can go ahead and say, hey, John, it's Jordan over here. I shot you an email a couple hours ago with a unique, video link or a blog about X, Y, and Z. Were you able to see it? And now that's a completely different conversation than, hey, I'm checking in on that proposal I sent over. Are you ready to do business? Where I can start, having better and higher quality conversations with somebody based on the things that are most important to them. And it allows me to continue the interaction with my prospect. And again, too, especially if you're working with a larger company or you, like to type out a lot of blogs, you can do that every single day. Like you can literally send out something valuable on email 5-6 days a week, and you can always call every single day regarding that piece of content rather than the same old, doldrums of just calling in on the proposal. So that would be just one thing. And of course, there's tens and tens and tens of different approaches and techniques that you can use that are, borderline crazy, and, some that are a little bit, a little less progressive, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm happy to hear those one a little bit later on. And I have something that I want to share as well and hear your thoughts on those ones. But I think like the main thing there really is that you should be doing follow-ups that add value to your clients. And I think you of course said the great thing that, for example, if you are, let's say, working for a company, you might have your own blog or you might have your own articles that you can share. But I think there might be someone now thinking that, oh no, our company doesn't have a blog, or I don't have any material. But I think a great way is actually not steal others' materials, but you can still like utilize other people's materials. For example, if I would be, let's say, I'm selling like marketing as a service, but sometimes, for example, the buyer might be a sales director. And then we have been discussing with him about like following up. Then I could send, for example, a link to this one, or for example, link to your YouTube video, which I have like absolutely nothing to do with. You have done the content, but that content will add value to your buyer. So I think it's super all right actually to use other people's content, like regarding the challenges that the clients are having.
I totally agree. And I do that stuff all the time. I'm a smaller business, so I don't have, tons of customer data. So when I see, a large research company or a large company run a quick study or a statistic on, the marketplace, I'm happy to use, those statistics or that data to use an email as well. So you're absolutely right. It does not have to be, I'm the one that made it, or it's my company that did this. You can find all sorts of information available online and use that again as a reason to provide somebody with value.
Yeah, exactly. And you said earlier about like the following up, for example, on email, that you could be sending, for example, daily some great tip or some article or blog post. But what do you think? How often should you be following? Because my first thought about that one was like, oh, too much. I might be like annoyed for that. But what do you think?
So I have one rule when it comes to follow up, and that is you follow up with your client whenever you think about them. And that can seem unbelievably excessive and downright, again, borderline crazy. But the point is if I'm going to follow up with you, say, I think about our deal 5 times in one day, that means, according to my rule, that I have to reach out to you 5 times in one day, which again can seem unbelievably excessive. if I'm not really providing you with value and I'm not really trying to learn or cater my follow-up to your interests and your affinities. Again, if I call you 5 times in one day saying, hey, you ready to do some business with me yet? Like, of course, that's going to be overbearing. You're going to get annoyed and upset, and I'm going to burn you out. And you're probably either going to cuss me out or you're just never, ever going to take my calls. And, I've been in that position enough times to change my approach. Whereas if I am reaching out to you 5 times in one day with 5 different links or articles or videos, or again, maybe not even, referencing the deal at all, well, then maybe I'm actually pushing the conversation and pushing the relationship a little further on down the line. If I can understand that you're in for example, if I'm working a deal with you and I think of you 5 times in one day, I know living here in the States and as a Porsche Motorsports fan, occasionally I think that in northern Finland, Porsche holds some type of winter driving course, on like frozen lakes or whatever. And that's something that I would want to do. In which case, if I understand that you're, obviously in Finland, and I also understand that maybe you're a motorsports enthusiast or whatever, I could send you a link to, this Porsche driving experience that's in Finland and see if you've been there, see if, this is something that would be worth going to, or, what type of weather, I could expect in the dead of winter in Finland, whatever. And again, you're more inclined to have that conversation with me than you are about, hey man, no, I haven't looked at the proposal, or we're not ready yet, or whatever. And so again, if you don't pick up the phone on my Finland, Porsche experience call, well, no sweat. Now I have to be creative enough, and use the interests and affinities that I know you're into, to reach out again later on that day regarding something else, maybe a time that you've come to the States or whatever. Again, I can reach out as many times as I want to if I'm providing value and moving the relationship further on down the road. If I'm not, then of course, you're just going to burn somebody up and they're going to hate your guts.
Yeah, for sure. But what do you think? For example, let's take that one, what you told as an example. I think, of course, that is, for example, if you would be trying to sell to me, that those would be like interesting subject to talk about. But then at the same time, I think that the buyer would be always saying that, is Jordan only discussing about ice driving and making those things up only to close the deal? So where do you see the balance over there?
So, I feel like I'm very genuine in my approach. I think it depends. If I find out that you're not a racing fan whatsoever, then I'm probably not going to send this particular thing. Again, I want to get as close to your values and your interests as possible, so that I can feel like I'm not being disingenuous about my communication with you. So, I don't think that you should just send out a bunch of random stuff to somebody and see what type of, what sticks to the wall. I think it's important to spend a little bit of time doing whatever type of homework you can to learn what, people are interested in, so on and so forth. And if none of those things exist, well, then what I need to really rely on then is general popular entertainment to keep you engaged. For instance, another, towards the more progressive side of follow-up techniques is, sending memes. We all love memes, on Instagram, we tag each other in this stuff. And because memes are a great way of communicating a lot of different things. They say a photo is worth 1,000 words, right? So what's a meme worth? Like 10,000? And if I can send if you haven't responded yet, I can go ahead and I can send a meme of a skeleton sitting on a park bench and just caption it and say, "This is me, waiting for you to call me back." And again, this doesn't really cater to your, values or your interests, so on and so forth. So if I don't have those things, I know I can rely on a skeleton sitting on a park bench to help communicate that I'm over here dying, waiting for you to actually call me back. And, I've used that exact meme maybe thousands of times, and it works extremely well because, again, it caters to that desire that we all have to be entertained. And, again, it's very relatable.
Yeah, and I think like memes are super great on the sales side. But one thing that I'm like always thinking is that like as a sales guy, you are basically representing the brand or the company you are working with, and I think that that might bring up some challenges that you are thinking like, of course you are like sales coach, you are doing everything for yourself, and you are like, fuck it, I can do whatever I want. Like it's basically like my problem if someone gets pissed, no worries. But then, for example, if you work for like let's say bigger company, they have some kind of brand, and you are thinking like I should be as a brand. Then can you do like crazy things? Where do you see? Is there a line somewhere?
I don't think that there really is, to be honest, because of a couple of different reasons based on my experience. One is human beings, the buyers out there in the world, the potential customers, they're going to trust a personal brand or a person more than they trust a company. 93% of customers, at least here in the United States, a report that I read, trust a personal brand over a company brand. That's why, here in the States, with our large insurance companies, they're not just, Progressive Insurance. That's why we have that woman named Flo. And, Geico isn't just Geico. They have that little gecko that talks to us in that, I think, Australian accent. I'm not entirely sure. But so I think from that standpoint, one of the things that I've done really well, at least in my previous sales career, working for another company and another brand, is I established a personal brand within the actual company brand, and so everything that I did pointed back to the company, and I did it, again professionally, but using things like memes, some of those things again that may seem a little bit taboo. All we're doing is selling to other human beings, and these are the type of things that I've seen work in every industry with every type of product, every type of role of customer, and ultimately too, the stuffier and the more professional these other follow-up attempts are, again, to a CEO at a large company, the crazier and the more different you can make your follow-up, actually the better, because they'll actually respect and appreciate the difference between you and everyone else. And that's really what everything that I do touches, is how can I be different and differentiate myself from all the other people in my marketplace? Because if I can do that, then I can hold somebody's attention because I'm different, I'm novel, I'm doing something new or different. And also too, I'm just creating more opportunities above and beyond what other people are actually able to create for themselves. So being different is actually a much more desirable attribute than, slowing down and saying, dude, should we send this meme? Just send it. And because again, the person that you're selling to is a human being, and they desire, education, they desire entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, now I would love to hear like really some craziest ideas, craziest stories that you have done.
Yeah, I've done a lot. I've done some borderline ridiculous things. I'll give you probably maybe two stories here. There was at my last sales office in Florida, we had access to the rooftop. And when it's the end of the month and you've got your whole paycheck riding on a couple of deals, to get in by Friday night at 6 p.m., you start doing some creative stuff. And one of the things that I've done a couple of times is, I would well, it started off as a phone call. So, I would have a sales manager of mine call the prospect who we hadn't heard from in a couple of weeks, and we had the deal pending, and like we wanted the deal before the end of the month. So I'd have a sales manager call and basically leave a voicemail, or at least connect with the prospect over the phone and say, hey Chuck, it's Steve over here. Look, we can't find Jordan, and when we did, we found that he was actually on the rooftop, just screaming your name. And we're not entirely sure if he plans on jumping off the roof by 6:01 if that deal doesn't come through, but it really appears that your life, or his life, is in your hands. If there's any way that you can sign this deal back and get it back and save Jordan's life, it'd be greatly appreciated. And, several times I had people, call immediately back, or just not even call and send the deal over, with some crying, laughing faces in the email. And then that phone call, the suicide call, it actually ended up evolving into a video format, where I would legitimately be standing on the roof, of course, safely, there's nothing, no problems here. But I would be on the roof and, I would have another coworker, take my phone and video themselves trying to find Jordan in the office and then make it up to the rooftop where, again, I would be standing and say, Jeff, it's Jordan over here. I just don't know what to do anymore. I can't stop thinking about doing business with you. It looks like my whole, paycheck is on the line over here. And this just might be the end of it for me. Send the deal back and save my life. And, again, as long as you're being entertaining right there and this isn't very serious, this can be, borderline crazy, but also hyper effective. Because again, it communicates the excitement, the desperation of getting a deal done at the buzzer. And, these are the types of follow-up techniques that sound ridiculous, but are also ridiculously effective for the same reason.
Yeah, sounds good. I have one story that I would like to share here. One of my clients, I think some Finnish people listening to this might actually know her based on the fact that she loves pineapples, and we had a big deal closing in, and she has just bought a cabin in the woods, and then we were thinking what should we do, so we actually bought a big box and we filled it with canned pineapples and an axe for the cabin, and then we sent it to her office. So box full of pineapples and axe, and that worked well. But I think it's like super cool to try different things. And I think one thing you do, one thing I love to do is like just send personalized videos for people. It can be, of course, from the rooftop, but just like normal selfie video with your phone, that really works great as well.
Yep. I'm a huge fan of the selfie video, and there's really an unlimited amount of applications that you can use the selfie video in. And, I think a lot of people kind of know about it, but don't really do it because for some reason they're still kind of uncomfortable, thinking that this is a professional way of reaching out to somebody, when really it is hands down the most effective thing that you can possibly do.
Yeah, exactly. But what do you think? When you should be stopping the follow-up? Should you be following up until you get a yes or no, or is there a point for that?
So, good question. I think I've two answers. One is I don't think you should ever really stop following up. And again, this is all hinged upon the fact that you're always making an effort to provide value. So again, I should be able to follow up with somebody frequently and consistently over time, again, if I am actually attempting to provide them with value. So that's kind of the answer to number one is, I don't really believe you should stop following up. If you're not providing your customer with value, yes, you should probably stop following up when, one, they become unresponsive for a couple of weeks, or two, tell you to go, shoot yourself. That's probably about the time to to stop following up. But if you're providing value, if you're being creative, then, I believe that you can pretty much follow up, for forever. The second point to that is if you are using creative, entertaining, and fun ways of reaching out to customers, the good news is that you're going to win a lot of business that you currently aren't, because you're being creative, you're being thoughtful, educating, and entertaining. However, for the people that are offended or don't like your selfie video or don't like that meme or, don't want to read your blog or video or whatever, the good news is that those types of follow-up techniques are going to also, quicken the speed at which some of the people that aren't going to do business with you anyway get out of your pipeline. So you're really going ahead and helping yourself out by getting a strong no from somebody or whatever. And that's great news, because you don't have to waste your time chasing people that aren't going to do business with you anyway or aren't going to be a good fit for you. So You know, I basically, I do me and I lose on my terms. I'm happy to do that. If you don't want to do business with me because I sent a meme of a skeleton sitting on a park bench, like, that's all good with me. Thank you very much for being upfront with me. I'm going to go continue doing my sales process on people that actually, you know, enjoy it. So, you know, I think that's the silent benefit too of being creative.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Great ideas there. And now we could actually jump on to our last phase of the interview. So I have a question from my previous guest, and then you can ask the question to our next guest. And previous guest was Sangram Vaire, the father of account-based marketing. And Sangram asked that, what is the number one thing that sales wants from marketing?
The number one thing that salespeople or sales organizations or the sales department would want from the marketing department is the information. Well, one, obviously we want qualified leads. Like, hands down, if you can just send me some qualified leads, that'd be great. But, you know, in addition to that, you know, the data that we need to have effective conversations with folks. Sometimes there's a difference between me sliding you a lead with a name, a phone number, and saying, hey, this person's interested in our product. You're like, well, what exactly are they interested in? How big is this opportunity? You know, what's most important to this person, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's better than having no leads, of course. But at the same time, wouldn't you rather prefer, well, hey, you know, this is a sales organization. They have, you know, 200 people. They do $15 million a year. They really have attention on these three, you know, problems or challenges in their business. And by the way, have already been shopping these couple of competitors. That would be the most useful thing that I could get from a marketing team is, you know, do a little bit more mining for the data, for the problems and the things that somebody may have some attention on. So I can have, one, a more effective sales conversation, and also two, not make my prospect feel like I'm asking them 50 questions just to kind of qualify them, so on and so forth. So I think salespeople are probably looking for, you know, more data regarding the leads, you know, a little bit, you know, more data that they can use to have more effective conversations.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I can totally agree on that one. It makes my job so much easier. For example, if I, let's say, see from our CRM that this customer has been on our site reading this and this blog, for example, I think that is like super valuable data that I can use on my discovery call, for example. So
exactly.
Great point. Hey, then your question to my next guest. Next guest will be Bill McKightis, ex-CMO of Slack, Zendesk, and Salesforce, and we will be talking growth with Bill. So what do you think? What I should be asking from Bill?
So I had my own SaaS company over the last couple of years myself, and, you know, seeing this guy's background, Bill's background with Slack, Zendesk, and Salesforce being the CMO, I think my question, and, you know, I may have to reword this because it's coming off the top of my head here, but when you go into a saturated marketplace, even with a unique product, something like Slack, for instance, how do you best position yourself in the marketplace as a key player, especially amongst other giants? You know, like Salesforce, of course. You know, like I had a CRM company. They were the 4,000 pound, you know, elephant in the room. And so, you know, I position myself through marketing to, you know, basically say Salesforce is the big bad animal and they don't really care about you and blah, blah, blah. And that helped me a ton. But what I'd like to know is, how would you maybe go about doing that without calling attention to your competitors? That would be the question that I would really have.
Yeah, great question. And thank you so much, Jordan, for joining me. If the listeners want to follow you, hear more about your thoughts on sales, where is the best place to do that?
Best place to go find me on social is going to be Instagram or YouTube, both at Jordan Stupar. And if you're looking for a little bit more in depth, if you will, you can always go to stuparsalesacademy.com, or you can go to jordanstupar.com.
Yeah, sounds good. Hey, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for listeners. If you liked the episode, feel free to share it on your social and tag me and Jordan on that one. And good luck with following up for everyone.
That's right.
Bye-bye.